Emma Catherine Harrison had always been the perfect student. Her bedroom walls were covered with certificates of achievement, honor roll plaques, and academic awards that stretched back to primary school. At 22, she was in her final year. At Cambridge University, studying medicine with a kind of focused determination that impressed her professors and worried her friends. "You never take a break, Emma," her roommate Sarah would say. Watching Emma study late into the night while other students were out enjoying university life. "When was the last time you did something just for fun?" Emma would smile and return to her textbooks. Fun was a luxury she couldn't afford. Her parents, Dr. Michael Harrison and Dr. Patricia Harrison, had invested everything in her education. They were both successful physicians who had met during their residency and built a thriving practice together. From the moment Emma could understand words, the message had been clear. She would follow in their footsteps and become a doctor. The Harrison family dinner conversations always centered around medical cases, new research, and Emma's progress toward becoming a physician. "We're so proud of you, darling," her mother would say during their weekly phone calls. "Dr. Williams mentioned that you're at the top of your clinical rotation. You'll make an excellent surgeon, just like your father." But lately, something had been stirring inside Emma that she couldn't quite name. It wasn't that she disliked medicine. She was genuinely good at it and found parts of it fascinating. The human body was incredible, and she appreciated the science behind healing. Yet something felt missing, some essential part of herself. That remained unfulfilled despite all her academic success. The feeling had started during her recent rotation in the emergency department. While treating patients, she had noticed the security guards and police officers who occasionally came through. They carried themselves with a different kind of purpose, a sense of duty that seemed to go beyond professional obligation.
There
Was something about their bearing, their commitment to serving and protecting others, that struck her as profoundly meaningful. One evening, after a particularly long day in the hospital, Emma found herself walking through central London instead of returning to her student accommodation. She wasn't sure why. She felt drawn to keep walking until she found herself standing outside Buckingham Palace. Watching the changing of the guard ceremony, the precision, the discipline, the absolute dedication of the guards captivated her in a way she hadn't expected. These weren't just ceremonial positions. She could see in their faces and posture that they took their duties seriously. They were protectors, servants of something greater than themselves, committed to a cause that demanded everything they had to give. As Emma watched the guards march in perfect formation, something deep inside her responded with recognition. This was what had been missing from her life, a sense of true service, of being part of something bigger than personal achievement or family expectations. Medicine was noble, certainly, but it was also what everyone expected of her. It was the safe path, the approved path, the path that would make her parents proud and secure her financial future. But standing there in the evening light, watching the guards perform their duties with such quiet dignity, Emma felt something she had never experienced before, a calling that had nothing to do with what others expected of her and everything to do with who she truly wanted to become. She found herself saying to one of the tourists standing nearby, an older gentleman with a military bearing, "Those guards, are they all men?" The man smiled. "Oh, no, my dear. The Queen's Guard has been accepting women since 2007. My niece applied a few years back. Didn't make it through training, but she said it was the most challenging and rewarding experience of her life." Emma felt her heart skip a beat. Women could serve as Queen's Guards? She had never known this, had never even considered it as a possibility. Her mind began racing with questions. What kind of training was required? What were the physical standards? What would it mean to dedicate your life to protecting the crown and serving your country? That night, instead of studying for her upcoming medical exams, Emma found herself researching the household division, the requirements for joining the Queen's Guard, and the experiences of women who had served in this elite unit. What she read both thrilled and terrified her. The training was intense, the standards incredibly high, and the commitment absolute. It would mean abandoning everything she had worked toward, disappointing her parents, and choosing a path that nobody in her life would understand. But as she read testimonials from serving guards about the honor, the purpose, and the profound satisfaction of their role, Emma felt something inside her soul awaken. For the first time in her life, she was considering doing something purely because it called to her, not because it was expected or safe or approved by others. The weeks following Emma's discovery about the Queen's Guard were filled with internal turmoil. During the day, she attended her medical school classes and clinical rotations, performing exactly as expected. But at night, she found herself researching military service, physical fitness requirements, in the application process for the household division. She discovered that becoming a Queen's Guard wasn't simply a matter of applying. First, she would need to join one of the regiments that provided guards for royal duties: the Grenadier Guards, Coldstream Guards, Scots Guards, Irish Guards, or Welsh Guards. The training was rigorous, lasting many months, and would test not just her physical capabilities, but her mental resilience and commitment to duty. Emma began secretly preparing her body for the physical challenges ahead. She started running every morning before classes, gradually increasing her distance and pace. She joined a gym and began weight training, building the strength that would be required to carry equipment, march for hours, and meet the demanding physical standards of military service. Her friends noticed the changes. "Emma, you're getting incredibly fit," Sarah observed one morning as Emma returned from her run. "Are you training for a marathon? You never mentioned wanting to run." "Just trying to stay healthy," Emma replied, avoiding the deeper truth. She wasn't ready to tell anyone about her growing desire to abandon medicine for military service. The idea still seemed too radical, too impossible to speak aloud. But the pull toward military service only grew stronger. During her hospital rotations, Emma found herself increasingly frustrated with the bureaucracy, the focus on profit margins alongside patient care, and the competitive atmosphere among her fellow students. While she respected the medical profession, she realized that healing people one at a time, while important, didn't fulfill her deep need to serve something greater than herself. The turning point came during a family dinner, when her parents began discussing their plans for Emma's future. "We've been thinking," her father said over dessert. "After you complete your residency, there might be an opportunity for you to join our practice. We could expand into a family medical center, Harrison and Associates." Her mother beamed with excitement. "Imagine, Emma, 3 generations of physicians serving the community. Your grandmother would be so proud, and the financial security would be wonderful. You'd never have to worry about money the way some doctors do in the public system." Emma felt something inside her break as she listened to her parents plan out her entire life. They had good intentions, she knew, but they were describing a future that felt like a prison to her. The idea of spending the next 40 years in the same medical practice, following the same routine, living the life they had chosen for her, rather than the one she felt called to live, filled her with a quiet desperation. That night Emma made a decision that would change everything. She called the recruitment office for the Coldstream Guards and requested information about joining. The sergeant who answered was professional but direct. "Miss Harrison, military service isn't something you do on a whim. This is a serious commitment that will require everything you have to give. Are you prepared for that?" "I think so," Emma replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "I want to serve my country. I want to be part of something bigger than myself." "Then come in for an informal chat next week. No commitment, just an opportunity to learn what we're about and see if this is really the path for you." Emma's hands were shaking as she hung up the phone. She had taken the first concrete step toward a future she had never imagined possible. But along with the excitement came fear. Fear of disappointing her parents, fear of abandoning her medical education, and fear of choosing a path that might lead to failure. The next few days were torturous. During lectures about anatomy and pharmacology, Emma's mind wandered to thoughts of military training, ceremonial duties, and the honor of serving as one of the Queen's Guards. She found herself studying the guards she saw around London with new eyes, wondering what their training had been like, what motivated them, and whether she had what it would take to join their ranks. Her grades began to slip slightly as her attention was divided between her current studies and her growing fascination with military service. Professor Williams, her clinical supervisor, noticed during rounds one morning, "Miss Harrison, You seem distracted lately. Is everything all right? Your performance is still excellent, but I can tell your mind is elsewhere. I'm fine, Professor, Emma assured him. Just thinking about the future, about what kind of medicine I want to practice. It was technically true, though not in the way he would expect. Emma was indeed thinking about her future, but it increasingly looked nothing like the medical career everyone expected her to pursue. The appointment with the recruitment sergeant was approaching, and with it, the possibility of a complete transformation of her life's direction. The recruitment office was nothing like Emma had expected. Instead of the intimidating atmosphere she had imagined, Sergeant Major Collins was professional, thoughtful, and genuinely interested in understanding her motivations. He was a career soldier with 23 years of service, and his questions cut straight to the heart of her decision. "Miss Harrison," he said, reviewing the paperwork she had filled out, "you're about to complete a medical degree at Cambridge. That's a significant investment of time and money to walk away from. Help me understand why you want to serve as a guard." Emma had practiced this answer, but sitting across from the sergeant major, she found herself speaking from the heart rather than reciting rehearsed words. "I've spent my entire life doing what was expected of me, being who others wanted me to be. But when I watch the Queen's Guards, I see people who have chosen to serve something greater than themselves. That calling, that sense of purpose, I feel it, and I can't ignore it anymore." Sergeant Major Collins leaned back in his chair, studying her carefully. "The training is brutal, Miss Harrison. We'll push you harder than you've ever been pushed. Many recruits don't make it through, and if you do succeed, the commitment is absolute. When you're on duty, you're responsible for protecting some of the most important people and locations in our country. There's no room for doubt or half measures." "I understand," Emma replied. "I've been preparing physically, and I'm prepared mentally for the challenge. This isn't a whim or a rebellion against my family. This is what I want to do with my life." The sergeant major scheduled her for the initial fitness assessment and aptitude tests. As Emma left the recruitment office, she felt both exhilarated and terrified. She was actually moving forward with this radical change in her life's direction, but first she had to tell her parents. The conversation happened over Sunday dinner. A weekly tradition in the Harrison household, Emma had planned to ease into the topic gradually. Watching her parents discuss their medical practice and their expectations for her future made delaying impossible. "Mom, Dad," she said during a pause in the conversation, "I need to tell you something important. I've been doing a lot of thinking about my future, and I've decided to apply to join the military." The silence that followed was deafening. Her father set down his fork and stared at her as if she had spoken in a foreign language. Her mother's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, and then horror. Her mother said carefully, "What do you mean, join the military? You're studying medicine. You're going to be a doctor." "I don't want to be a doctor," Emma said quietly. "I know how much you've invested in my education, and I know this isn't what you planned. But I want to serve as one of the Queen's Guards. I want to protect the crown and serve my country." Her father's reaction was immediate and explosive. "Are you completely out of your mind? You're throwing away a Cambridge medical degree to play dress-up soldier? Do you have any idea how ridiculous this sounds?" "It's not ridiculous to me," Emma replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. "This is what I want to do with my life. This is what feels right." The argument that followed was devastating. Her parents accused her of being ungrateful, immature, and delusional. They pointed out the financial security of medicine, the respect that came with being a physician, and the years of preparation she was about to waste. Her mother cried, her father shouted, and Emma sat through it all with tears streaming down. Her face, but her resolve unchanged. "If you do this," her father said finally, "don't expect us to support your decision. We won't watch you throw your life away on some romantic notion about military service." Emma left her family home that evening knowing that her relationship with her parents might never recover, but also knowing that she couldn't live her life according to their dreams rather than her own. The next morning, she called Sergeant Major Collins and confirmed her participation in the selection process. She also made another difficult decision. She would complete her medical degree, not because she planned to use it, but because she had made commitments to her professors and patients that she wouldn't abandon without fulfilling her. obligations. The following months were the most challenging of Emma's life. During the day, she attended medical school and completed her clinical rotations with the same dedication she had always shown. But every spare moment was spent preparing for military selection. She ran longer distances, trained harder, and studied military protocol and history. Her friends at university noticed the change in her, but couldn't understand it. "Emma, you're acting so strange lately," Sarah said one evening. "You're always exercising. You seem distant during classes, and you look like you're preparing for something big. What's going on?" Emma finally told Sarah about her plans. Reaction was less harsh than her parents, but equally confused. "But you're brilliant at medicine," Sarah said. "Why would you want to stand around in a funny hat guarding buildings?" "It's not about standing around," Emma explained. "It's about service, duty, and being part of something that matters." "I know. It doesn't make sense to you, but this feels right in a way that medicine never has." As the date for her military selection approached, Emma felt a mixture of excitement and terror. She had worked harder than ever before to prepare, but she also knew that wanting something wasn't the same as being capable of achieving it. Soon she would discover whether her dream of serving as one of the Queen's Guards was possible, or simply the fantasy her parents believed it to be. The selection weekend arrived on a cold February morning at the Coldstream Guards training facility. Emma stood with 37 other candidates, mostly young men, but also a few other women, all hoping to earn the right to begin formal military. Training the next 3 days would determine whether her dream was achievable or whether she would return to medicine with her parents proven right about her romantic delusions. The physical tests began immediately. Emma found herself running obstacle courses, completing endurance challenges, and demonstrating strength requirements that pushed her body to its limits. Months of secret training had prepared her well, but she quickly realized that many of the other candidates had been preparing for years. Some with military family backgrounds or previous cadet experience. "Keep up, Harrison," shouted company. Sergeant Major Davies as Emma struggled through a particularly brutal series of exercises carrying heavy equipment. "If you can't handle this, how do you expect to march for hours in full-dress uniform?" Emma gritted her teeth and pushed harder. She had come too far to quit now. Round her, other candidates were beginning to drop out, realizing they weren't prepared for the intensity required. But Emma drew on reserves of determination she hadn't known she possessed. Fueled by the knowledge that this was her one chance to pursue the life she truly wanted, the psychological evaluations were equally challenging. Probed her motivations, questioned her commitment, and tested her ability to handle stress and make decisions under pressure. They seemed particularly interested in her medical background and her reasons for abandoning such a secure career path. "Ms. Harrison," said Dr. Roberts, the chief psychological evaluator, "you're giving up a profession that would provide excellent income, social status, and the opportunity to help people. The military will offer you lower pay, significant personal risk, and long periods away from family. Explain to me why this makes sense." Emma had thought about this question many times, but articulating it clearly remained difficult. "In medicine, I would help people one at a time, which is important and valuable. But as a guard, I would be protecting not just individuals, but institutions, traditions, and values that affect millions of people. The scope of the service feels more meaningful to me, and if you fail to complete training, if you're injured or simply can't meet the standards required, then I'll know I tried to follow my calling rather than living someone else's life," Emma replied. "I'd rather fail at something I believe in than succeed at something that doesn't fulfill me." The interview continued for over an hour, covering everything from her family relationships to her ability to take orders from superiors who might be younger or less educated than herself. Emma answered as honestly as possible, knowing that any deception would likely be detected and would certainly disqualify her. By the end of the selection weekend, Emma was exhausted but exhilarated. She had given everything she had and felt proud of her performance, regardless of the outcome. The waiting period for results would be 2 weeks, 14 days. That would determine the entire trajectory of her future. During those 2 weeks, Emma completed her final medical school examinations with a strange sense of detachment. Performed well, as always, but her mind was entirely focused on the military selection results. Her professors noticed her distraction, but attributed it to the stress of approaching graduation and decisions about residency. Programs had maintained their distance since their argument about her military aspirations. They called once during the waiting period, but the conversation was strained and brief. "We're hoping this foolishness will pass and you'll come to your senses," her mother said. "Dr. Peterson has offered you a place in his residency program. It's an excellent opportunity, I know, ma'am," Emma replied. "But I need to see where this path leads me first." The call came on a Tuesday morning while Emma was studying for her final medical exam. Sergeant Major Collins' voice was neutral, giving no hint of the results he was about to deliver. "Miss Harrison, I'm calling regarding your application to join the Coldstream Guards. After a careful review of your performance during selection and your background evaluation, I'm pleased to inform you that you've been accepted for basic training. Congratulations." Emma felt her knees go weak with relief and joy. "Thank you, Sergeant Major. When do I begin?" "Training starts in 6 weeks. That should give you time to complete your university obligations and prepare for what will be the most challenging experience of your life. Are you still committed to this path?" "Absolutely," Emma said without hesitation. "This is what I want to do." After the call ended, Emma sat in her room staring at her medical textbooks and feeling a profound sense of rightness about her decision. She would complete her degree as planned, but then she would begin an entirely different chapter of her life. That evening, she called her parents to share the news. The conversation was brief and painful. Her father hung up after expressing his disappointment, while her mother cried and begged her to reconsider. But Emma's resolve only strengthened. She had been accepted into one of the most prestigious military units in the world based on her own merit and determination. Her friends at university were stunned by the news. Sarah, who had initially been confused by Emma's decision, gradually came to understand and even admire her roommate's courage. "I don't think I could ever do what you're doing," she admitted. "Giving up everything safe and predictable to chase something that might not work out. But I'm starting to see why it matters to you." As Emma began preparing for military training, she felt a sense of anticipation and purpose that had been missing throughout her medical education. She was finally pursuing a path that felt authentically her own, regardless of what others thought about her choice. The first day of basic training at the Infantry Training Center was unlike anything Emma had ever experienced. At 5:30 in the morning, she stood with 29 other recruits as Drill Sergeant Williams introduced them to what would be their reality for the next 6 months. "You are no longer students, children, or civilians," he announced in a voice that commanded absolute attention. "You are soldier recruits, and your only job is to learn what it means to serve your queen in country with honor. Some of you will not make it through this training. Some of you will discover you're not cut out for military service. And some of you will emerge as guardsmen ready to take on one of the most honored positions in the British Army." Emma quickly discovered that her months of physical preparation had been helpful but insufficient. The training was relentless. 6-day weeks filled with combat training, weapons instruction, field exercises, and endless drilling on military protocol and ceremonial procedures. Every aspect of their lives was scrutinized and corrected, from how they made their beds to how they addressed their superiors. Her medical background occasionally proved useful in unexpected ways. During first aid training, Emma's knowledge of anatomy and emergency medicine impressed the instructors. When fellow recruit James Morrison collapsed during a particularly grueling exercise, Emma was able to assess his condition and provide immediate care until medical personnel arrived. "Good work, Harrison," Sergeant Williams acknowledged afterward. "That medical training might come in handy. But don't think it makes you special. You still have to prove yourself as a soldier." The mental challenges were as demanding as the physical ones. Emma had to learn to follow orders without question, even when they seemed unreasonable or when she might have suggestions based on her education and experience. The hierarchy was absolute, and her years of academic achievement meant nothing in this environment. She struggled initially with the weapons training. Having never held a gun before military service, Emma found the SA-80 rifle intimidating and difficult to master. Her shooting scores were consistently among the lowest in her group, leading to extra practice sessions and individual instruction from the weapons instructors. "Harrison, you're thinking too much," Corporal Davies told her during one evening. "Practice session. Stop analyzing every shot like it's a medical procedure. Trust your training, trust your instincts, and trust your equipment." Gradually, Emma began to improve. The discipline and study habits that had made her successful in academics served her well in learning military skills. She approached each challenge methodically, practiced relentlessly, and slowly began to earn the respect of her instructors and fellow recruits. The ceremonial training was perhaps the most demanding aspect of their preparation, learning to march in perfect synchronization, to stand motionless for hours regardless of weather conditions, and to perform the intricate movements of guard duty required a level of precision that challenged every recruit. Emma found this training oddly satisfying. There was something meditative about the focus and discipline required. Halfway through basic training, Emma's parents made an unexpected visit to the base. She had been granted a brief leave period, and they had driven up from London, hoping to convince her to abandon military service and return to medicine. "Emma, darling, you look so thin," her mother said, horrified by the visible changes in her daughter. Emma had lost weight, gained significant muscle definition, and carried herself with the upright bearing of a soldier in training. "I'm in the best shape of my life, ma'am," Emma replied. "The training is challenging, but I'm exactly where I want to be." Her father was more direct. "This is madness, Emma. You're throwing away everything we worked for, everything you achieved. Dr. Peterson says he'll still consider you for his residency program if you come to your senses soon." Emma looked at her parents with a mixture of love and sadness. She understood their disappointment, but she also knew with absolute certainty that she was on the right path. "I love you both, but this is my life to live. I'm happier and more fulfilled than I've ever been. Can't you see that?" The visit ended with tears and harsh words, her parents leaving without fully understanding her decision. Emma returned to training with a heavy heart but unwavering determination. As the weeks progressed, Emma began to excel in areas she had never expected. Her attention to detail and ability to remain calm under pressure made her a natural leader among the recruits. When their group was assigned challenging field exercises, she often found herself in leadership roles, helping coordinate their activities and ensure mission success. The transformation in Emma was remarkable. The uncertain young woman who had questioned her medical studies had been replaced by a confident soldier who understood her purpose and embraced the demands of military service. Her fellow recruits began to look to her for guidance, and her instructors took notice of her leadership potential. Harrison Sergeant Williams told her during their final month of training, "You've come further than almost any recruit I've trained. You've had the furthest to travel from civilian academic to military professional, but you've made that journey with distinction." As graduation from basic training approached, Emma felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything she had experienced. In her academic achievements, she had proven to herself and others that she could succeed in an environment that was completely different from anything she had known before. 2 years later, Guardsman Emma Harrison stood at her post outside St. James's Palace, resplendent in the iconic red tunic and bearskin hat that marked her as one of the Queen's Guards. The early morning London air was crisp, and tourists were already beginning to gather, cameras ready to capture images of the guards who had become symbols of British tradition and dedication. Emma's journey from medical student to Queen's Guard had been completed with distinction. After basic training, she had undergone specialized guard training, learning the intricate ceremonial procedures, the history and traditions of the regiment, and the specific duties required of those entrusted with protecting the royal family and their residences. Her first posting had been to Windsor Castle, where she had served during several royal events and learned firsthand the weight of responsibility that came with her position. The work was demanding long hours of standing motionless, maintaining perfect posture and alertness, regardless of weather conditions, and always being prepared for any security situation that might arise. But Emma had never been happier or more fulfilled in her life. Every morning when she put on her uniform, she felt a deep sense of purpose that had been missing during all her years of medical study. She was serving something greater than herself, protecting institutions and traditions that represented the best of her country's values. Her medical background had proven more valuable than anyone expected. During her second year of service, Emma had been present when a tourist suffered a severe allergic reaction near her post. While maintaining her guard duties, she had been able to provide medical guidance to the paramedics who responded, likely saving the person's life. The incident had earned her commendation from her superiors and recognition for the unique skills she brought to her role. Guardsman Harrison, Colonel Peterson, had said during the commendation ceremony, "You exemplify what it means to serve with distinction. Your quick thinking and medical expertise, combined with your unwavering commitment to your guard duties, represent the highest standards of our regiment." The recognition meant everything to Emma, but the private moments of satisfaction meant even more. When she stood at her post and watched the changing of the guard ceremony, seeing the precision and pride of her fellow guards, she felt connected to something timeless and significant. When tourists thanked her for her service or when children looked at her with admiration, she remembered why she had chosen this path. Her relationship with her parents had slowly begun to heal. They still didn't fully understand her decision, but they had gradually come to accept it and even feel pride in her accomplishments. Her mother had visited during one of Emma's ceremonial duties and been moved to tears seeing her daughter in uniform, standing with such dignity and purpose. "I still don't understand why you chose this over medicine," her mother had said afterward, "but I can see that you're happy, truly happy, in a way you never were during university." Emma's story had inspired other young women to consider military service. She had been asked to speak at recruitment events, sharing her experience of leaving a traditional career path to follow her calling to serve. Her message was always the same: authentic happiness comes from following your own path, not the one others expect you to take. "I don't regret my medical education," Emma would tell audiences. "The knowledge I gained has served me well in unexpected ways, but I would have spent my entire life regretting not pursuing what truly called to me." The Queen's Guard isn't just a job or even a career. It's a vocation, a commitment to something beyond yourself. During quiet moments off duty, Emma sometimes reflected on the dramatic change in her life's direction. She thought about her former classmates who are now doctors, establishing their practices and treating patients. She felt no envy or regret, only gratitude that she had found the courage to choose a different path. Her medical school friend Sarah had visited her in London. Amazed by the transformation she saw in Emma. "You're so confident now," Sarah observed. "So sure of yourself and your place in the world. I remember how stressed and uncertain you used to be, even when you were getting top marks. Now you seem completely at peace." Emma knew Sarah was right. The anxiety and uncertainty that had plagued her during medical school had disappeared completely. She woke each morning eager to begin her duties, proud of her uniform, committed to upholding the standards and traditions of her regiment. As she stood at her post that morning, watching the city wake up around her, Emma reflected on the journey that had brought her here. A scared young woman who had questioned her future during medical school seemed like a different person entirely. That woman had been living someone else's dream, trying to fit into a role that didn't suit her nature or fulfill her deeper needs. Now, as Guardsman Harrison of the Coldstream Guards, Emma had found her true calling. She was serving her queen, her country, and ideals that were larger than any individual ambition. The red tunic she wore represented centuries of tradition, honor, and service. The responsibility she bore was significant, and she carried it gladly. A group of school children approached with their teacher, wide-eyed at seeing one of the famous Queen's Guards. Emma remained perfectly still, but inside she smiled, knowing that she was part of something that inspired wonder and respect. She had walked away from medicine to serve as a royal guard, and she had never looked back. In finding her true calling, Emma had discovered not just a career, but a way of life that gave her days meaning and her service honor.